All right, so I'm going to bring up Piers Morgan. Now, what I could do is maybe break down an interview, the interview that he had with one of his guests, Lowkey. But I think we all kind of realize what the formula that Piers Morgan is doing throughout this entire year, and that is asking someone if they bloody well do condemn hummus. Hummus. Now, I would say one and done. Piers Morgan got the education that he needed from Bassem Youssef, not once but twice. I think that interview was really the lightning in the bottle that caused Piers Morgan to keep on talking about the crisis in Gaza. And let's face it, the war is intensifying. Iran is shooting missiles at Israel. Israel is shooting missiles at Iran. Israel is with its pager attack in Lebanon, as well as doing bombardments in Lebanon. Men, women, and children starving in Gaza. The West Bank being further occupied. It's quite clear that we are seeing a whole region suffering from the unending monster that is total war. Now, we know what needs to be done. Peace talks and a ceasefire must take place, but I don't think that's going to happen, folks. And I do have this sinking feeling of dread that the war is going to intensify further. And as I have said, and I don't want to be proven right or correct, and I'm pretty sure all my colleagues feel the same way too, but when the war started on October 7th, all what it was doing was laying foundations for the next war. Looks like I was wrong. There won't be any ceasefire or any temporary ceasefire. The war is going to be intensifying further and further, and more innocent people are going to suffer. So Piers Morgan had rapper and musician and influencer Lowkey on his show. But the thing is, yes, Piers Morgan did that Coca-Cola classic of, do you bloody well condemn hummus? Do you condemn hummus? Well, Lowkey did the Uno reverse card and asked good old Piers Morgan, does he condemn Logan Roy? I mean, Rupert Murdoch. I'm sorry, I had to throw in my Succession joke. But before we get to Piers Morgan looking like he had a situation where the cat took his tongue, let's go ahead and get started with how things intensified, as it should, all the time, every time. So let's go ahead and get started from the beginning, because the beginning is a very delicate time. So let's pull this up here right now in regards to starting off with the Hamas footage. Now, the story kept on going back and forth. Piers Morgan kept on pushing it Lowkey, and Lowkey standing defiant.
You categorize what Israel did to Hezbollah with the pages, whether you said it was an act of terror, whether you think what Hamas did to Israelis on October 7th was an act of terror.
As I said to you then, the picture is not clear of what exactly Hamas did to Israelis. There were lies about 40 beheaded babies that were pumped out all over the place. Yeah. No. There was so much fake news and lies on what happened on October 7th. How can we actually say...
Have you watched the Hamas footage that they took themselves?
Seen bits and pieces.
Bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Literally bits and pieces of people's bodies.
No.
No?
What really? I don't understand...
You haven't seen it,
I don't understand.
Why don't you want to see it?
I'm happy to see it, but what I don't understand, no, as in I would like to see these things, but what I'm saying to you, that you are seeming to minimize, in my opinion, is the fact that the Hannibal Directive was implemented. If the Hannibal Directive was implemented, if a fake news campaign was rolled out... I'm about to read
you something.
Read.
A July 2024 Haaretz investigation revealed the IDF ordered the Hannibal Directive to be used, adding, Haaretz does not know whether or how many civilians and soldiers were hit due to these procedures.
Now, the thing is, there's still an ongoing investigation. Whether anything comes of it will yet to be seen, but there are reports of what happened to Israeli civilians being hit with friendly fire. By the way, again, the New York Times did post an article about how Israel, the Israeli military, was given a heads up that something was going to take place sometime in October of last year. What the hell? They knew. Almost seems like a wag the dog kind of moment.
But the cumulative data indicates that many of the kidnapped people were at risk exposed to Israeli gunfire, even if they weren't the target. In other words, there may well have been a directive issued, says Haaretz, but nobody knows whether anyone was even hit or killed.
Look at the cars. Look at the cars fleeing the Nova Festival.
I've watched the video footage of what Hamas did to people in the cars. But here's my point, Lowkey. Here's my point, Lowkey. Let me finish. My point is, you have extrapolated this and you've taken it to hundreds of people in the 1,200 that were said to have been killed were killed by Israelis.
Yeah.
There is absolutely...
That's documented.
There is zero evidence.
No, there is.
The hundreds of people were
Read
killed.
the
Now, there's one more before we get to the point where Lowkey shakes Piers Morgan. It's sort of like that scene from Big Trouble in Little China, where the knife is thrown at Lopan. Lopan catches it, throws it back, but then it's caught again and hits Lopan right in the head. But first, before we get there, one more video.
You're talking about asymmetrical warfare. But you know, the thing that Israel doesn't remember, and which Israel has to know and must know, that winning a war is not about killing on an industrial scale the weakest among the population you are targeting, which Israel excels at, which is the essence of Zionism. Winning a war is about the largest amount of people being convinced of your viewpoint. If we use that metric to understand this war, Israel has lost in Gaza and it will lose in Lebanon because Israel has more enemies around the world than ever before. More people are critical of Zionism than ever before. More people understand it to be essentially an anti-life ideology, which is causing mass human suffering.
But Lowkey, at the same time, Hamas, Hezbollah are wedded, and make no secret of being wedded, to the destruction of Israel. The destruction. That is annihilation.
Now, Piers Morgan got this answer already from Bassem Youssef. Again, my theory is Piers saw the amount of views that he got with Bassem Youssef, and he's trying to recapture that moment. Now, not once, but twice. He had Bassem Youssef on his show, and it got millions upon millions of views. And in the YouTube business, especially if a channel like Piers Morgan's size, he wants that again. So far, he hasn't succeeded in capturing that same lightning moment.
Realistic form of genocide, the very genocide that his supporters, like you, would say is being waged against their people. They are explicit. We want the destruction of Israel. And they have tried to enact this on October the 7th. And Hezbollah's response the next day, within hours, was to unleash rockets on Israel as well and to carry on doing it for a year. At some point, Israel obviously was going to respond with massive force to the biggest attack on its people. Obviously, they were going to do that. Hamas knew they would do that. Iran, who were funding it, knew they were going to do that. Hezbollah knew they would do that. Hezbollah knew if they kept rattling the Israel cage with their rockets, that they would get a response of the kind we're seeing now. What they underestimated is that Israel would be quite as successful as they're being right now with Hezbollah.
Now, wait a minute. Hold on. This war could have been avoided. Intel was telling the Israeli military that there was an attack going to happen. Now, a lot of people, even those who are very pro-Israel, most notably, I want to mention Charlie Kirk, who said, I find this to be very, odd, because he's been there, where there's walls and watchtowers, cameras, drones, helicopters, airplanes, intelligence service in the ground. How do you not see that haymaker coming? And from October 7th, the war kept on escalating further and further beyond the conflict zone in Gaza and the West Bank into the outlying countries, to which I did say, hey, everybody, especially in those neighboring regions, you next.
And taking out all his command leadership. And you can feel that the momentum has switched now, where Israeli people in particular, and all the polling, are now beginning to go back to supporting Netanyahu because they believe, rightly or wrongly, but they believe Hamas and Hezbollah when they say we want to destroy Israel.
And so, all of you patient people waiting, welcome to the point in which Lowkey, rapper, influencer, again, commentator, makes Piers Morgan stumble. And I just want to read a quote from the comment section. Piers' face when he asked to condemn Murdoch was priceless. Lowkey just guaranteed that I'll never be invited back on. Because for those who don't know who Logan Roy is, I'm sorry, Rupert Murdoch. Rupert Murdoch is one of those media tycoons who's helped contribute and is one of the many architects of our neoliberal media here in the United States. Yes, you've seen me talk about CNN and MSNBC and ABC and CBS. But never forget Fox News. Now, hey, listen, I'll give Fox News credit. It's a little bit more entertaining and sometimes they're a little bit on point. But remember, corporate media always will be corporate media. And for this one moment, Piers Morgan is like, bloody hell, you asked me to condemn Murdoch? But you're supposed to, I'm supposed to own you by saying, do you bloody well condemn hummus? Hummus, hummus. So let's get to this point right here. So let's go ahead and pull this up here.
It's not really the point of what this debate is, right?
Right. It's not the point exactly. And
but the point I would make, Bridget, is this.
Now, this was another guest that came on, and he actually asked her a very interesting question, which, again, nothing will really come of it. But do you condemn the expansion into the West Bank? To which she kind of does, but again, this is a pro-Israel perspective guest that's on right now.
Do you think Lowkey has a good point about the settlements, right? What is going on in the West Bank with this rapid, aggressive expansion of settlements is completely outrageous. It's illegal. It's wrong. It shouldn't be happening. Why is it happening?
Sorry, you cut out. You mean the settlements in the West Bank?
Yeah, the expansion of settlements on the West Bank in the last year has been completely outrageous.
Well, look, there's a radical wing within Israel that wants to expand the settlements, and the settlements is an issue. I agree with you. There are a lot of people who are very upset about the settlements.
You're funded by the same organizations.
What does this have to do with the funding with what we're talking about? They are Americans who support the funding of protecting the United States, not Israel. Our work is devoted to protecting the United States. Has nothing to do.
Let's get back to the bigger picture.
Please.
So, Bridget, do you condemn the expansion of the settlements in the last year on the West Bank?
Say that again?
Do you condemn the expansion of the settlements on the West Bank in the past year?
Yes, I do. I think they are going overboard with the settlement.
Okay,
I think somebody needs to revisit looking at the settlement and how they are expanding.
Then that's good. Lowkey, do you condemn what Hamas did on October the 7th?
I have a question for you.
Well, hang on.
Based on
you
what
stop
you
asking
just said about
questions for a minute.
I'll answer your question in a second.
She's made an admission that she condemns it.
No, she condemns the expansion of settlements.
Fine. Lowkey,
and these people also fund
Lowkey,
her.
at some point you are going to... Lowkey, you are going to answer.
Now, here's where it gets good. Because at some point, he's saying to Lowkey, at some point, you're going to have to talk about how dangerous Hamas is and everything else. Now, look, Bassem Youssef already did that explanation. But Lowkey came in here with something. He came in here with a weapon of mass destruction. Lowkey, I think that's going to be the first and last time you're ever going to be on Piers Morgan's show. Ladies and gentlemen, try not to laugh.
Answer some of my questions.
Which I have done.
Okay, do you condemn what Hamas did?
Do you bloody well condemn Hamas? Do you condemn Hamas?
They asked me that.
Not directly, you haven't answered.
I will not condemn people based on Israeli military talking points.
Okay, good.
But I have a question for you. I have a question for you.
You don't condemn mass murder?
Obviously, I condemn mass murder.
You won't condemn it by Hamas?
You're talking about a specific political context in which the information
No, I'm talking about mass murder of people on October the 7th.
By the Israeli military.
See, it's just absurd.
So I have a question for you.
I think you lose all credibility when you say
I have a question for you. I'm not concerned about whether you think or don't think.
Here we go.
It's
I don't cover this from supporting either over the other.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
Are you sure about that?
Absolutely.
Because I have a question.
What's your question?
Rupert Murdoch.
Yeah.
News Corp International.
Yeah.
Which employed you for several years.
Yes.
Which actually
it employs me now.
It employs you now.
Yeah.
Okay, we're getting to the issue.
Yes.
Now.
What do you think the issue is? I saw what you tweeted. What does it have to do with me?
Not my tweets. I have a question for you.
Here's the question. All right, everybody. I told you we're having a good show today.
News Corp International had a charitable arm which funded the Jerusalem Foundation, which builds illegal settlements.
What's it got to do with me?
Illegal settlements in
What's it got
Jerusalem.
to do with me?
Do you condemn Rupert Murdoch?
What's it got to do with me?
Do you condemn Rupert Murdoch?
I'm not talking about Rupert Murdoch.
Do you condemn Rupert Murdoch?
I'm not talking about Rupert Murdoch.
This has never been shown on British media. This is a letter from Netanyahu's political office. And Bridget may well recognize the handwriting of Benjamin Netanyahu here. It is a list of individuals that Netanyahu considered to be funders of his political campaign. There is a name on this list, the name is Rupert Murdoch. Your employer.
You know what, Lowkey?
It seems he funded Benjamin Netanyahu.
You know
That's
what?
an issue.
You know what, Lowkey? It's not an issue for me.
In case you missed out, one more time.
This has never been shown on British media. This is a letter from Netanyahu's political office. And Bridget may well recognize the handwriting of Benjamin Netanyahu here. It is a list of individuals that Netanyahu considered to be funders of his political campaign. There is a name on this list. The name is Rupert Murdoch. Your employer.
You know what, Lowkey?
It seems he funded Benjamin Netanyahu. That's an issue.
You know what, Lowkey? It's not an issue for me.
It's an issue,
Nobody
and actually it's in the interest of objectivity
understand one thing.
that you state it.
Rupert Murdoch can speak for himself. You've got a problem with him, take it up with him.
I do.
I can tell you categorically, he has never had a single conversation with me about anything I put on Piers Morgan Uncensored.
Sam kindly resigned from the Times newspaper because of Murdoch's investment and bias towards
you have a
Israel.
Problem,
this document, this letter,
you're a rapper,
clearly
right?
shows Benjamin Netanyahu noting Rupert Murdoch, considering him to be a funder of his political campaign.
You're a rapper, yeah?
That's an issue.
You're a rapper. You condemn P. Diddy?
Yes.
Great. You see how he's...
What does that have to do with anything? What does the diddler have to do with anything here? You're a rapper. Do you condemn P. Diddy? Well, of course. Of course. God, ask 50 Cent if he condemns the diddler. Come on, man. And by the way, notice how the camera didn't zoom in on that piece of paper. It's almost as though they didn't want to put Piers Morgan in a little spot. Because, see, Rupert Murdoch, he's that pimp. Piers Morgan, he's that top earner. And after all, the bottom bitch must always be number one. But the bottom must always protect their position. Because you never know what's waiting in the corner to replace the current bottom bitch. Eh? Do you bloody well condemn Rupert Murdoch? Do you condemn P. Diddy? Come on.
Rupert Murdoch, considering him to be a funder of his political campaign.
You're a rapper, yeah?
That's an issue.
You're a rapper. You condemn P. Diddy?
Yes.
Great. You see how easy it is? You take it out of your obsession, which is that you hate Israel so much you can't condemn anything that people do to them?
We see the situation differently.
Not really.
My loyalty is to the people.
I agree with you a lot. I agree with you a lot more than you realize.
I view myself as loyal to the people of the camps, to the people under the bombs. I do not view myself as loyal to somebody that would end up on a list of potential funders of Benjamin Netanyahu.
I like Rupert Murdoch enormously. I respect him enormously. And if you,
oh yeah, hey, you got to go ahead and blow up on that pipe, right? Because you never want to, upset where the gravy is coming from. Because you need that moolah. Because you like Rupert, you know him a lot. Logan Roy, good friend, right?
And you won't condemn his funding of murder of Netanyahu. You won't condemn his funding of Netanyahu.
You don't condemn mass murder.
You don't condemn mass murder.
Oh, I do.
Condemn the Israeli military for mass murdering Israeli captives.
Had you bothered to watch this program for the last year, you would see I've regularly condemned them.
It's not condemnation.
But you don't think that what Hamas did was murder, do you? I think it's resistance.
I think the vast majority of humanity perceive asymmetrical warfare by developed militaries against the vast majority of humanity are post-colonial subjects, Piers. They came out of decolonization. So their conception of these issues is just not the same as yours, unfortunately.
We will have to disagree, but that's fine.
No problem.
All right. It was good to meet you. Thank you for coming in. Brigitte, thank you very much indeed for joining me. I appreciate it too. And we'll move on.
Hey, man. But I got to tell you, if you want to see Piers Morgan put out of his comfort zone, just bring up Rupert Murdoch and watch that boy change. He will twist and turn and just, oh my goodness gracious, cretaceous. He wasn't ready for that one. But cameraman, how come you didn't zoom in on that piece of paper? Because after all, this is a two-way street why this crisis in Gaza is getting out of hand. It is a tit for tat, war for war, occupation and destruction, and it's slowly killing everyone in that region. This is a generational trauma. This is a war that is going to be dragging all of us in it, whether we want to or not, because let's face it, money and politics rules everything. And here in the United States, as was brought up numerous times here on Hardlands Media and everywhere else in independent media, for those that talk about it, AIPAC has a lot of influence over our politicians, and there are AIPAC babysitters for our politicians. So it explains why billions of dollars of aid is going to war, but yet no billions of dollars of aid is going to the people impacted by the hurricane, recently impacting a lot of East Coast and Southern states. But hey, we're on our own. How did this happen? Why did this happen? It's because we have a corporate media outlet, a system that's been created to keep us uninformed and divided. And yes, I have badmouthed CNN and MSNBC and CBS and ABC. But we cannot forget the guy that helped really push it all along. Good old Rupert Murdoch himself, who has a lot of close ties to people in power, especially over there in Israel, because Bibi Netanyahu seems to view that guy as his best buddy, old pal, and surprise, surprise, Piers Morgan, good friend of Rupert Murdoch, works for him still. That pimp hand is strong. Now, I do hope that we see Lowkey back on again, but I don't think Piers was bloody well ready for that. He was ready to say, do you condemn Hamas? But he was quick to say, hey, do you condemn P. Diddy? But when confronted, does he condemn Rupert Murdoch? Whew. He had his brain had to work 1 billion miles a second. Don't say anything stupid. Quickly say something on the fly, real quickly. Bring up P. Diddy. Ah!